What is your most disturbing secret?
Experience 1. I have a good friend who is a very shy pooper. Like, we've been on trips together and he won't poop for days. He says he just can't relax and go because he's in public. But one time in college, about 6 years ago, he was super drunk and fell asleep pooping on my toilet. And the poop got all over my toilet, not sure how, but most of it did not go in the bowl. I got him up, cleaned him and the toilet up, and put him to bed. He was blackout drunk and doesn't remember it at all. I don't have the heart to tell him. He'd be mortified. It wouldn't do anyone any good. But when he's shy about pooping around me, I can't help but chuckle at the irony. Experience 2. When I was around 7 years old, I was sexually exploited and had my toddler photos sold to a minor attracted person by a maid we hired. One afternoon, right after taking a bath, I wanted to turn our PC on, but as a child, I was afraid of plugs due to the electricity. So, I asked her kindly to plug it in for me. But the maid then told me I should first pose for a photo in the bed, otherwise she wouldn't do it. So, I went to my bed and posed. I had a giant stuffed teddy bear at the time, so I covered my bare body because I somehow knew it was wrong. Then she told me to take the teddy bear off. She had also taken photos of my baby brother. The other maids carefully observed her and eventually told my parents. I watched her cry and beg on her knees, kissing my parents' feet. Explaining it was a joke as a kid, I honestly was laughing. The police further investigated and found out she had been making a fortune off of the photos she took of children she was hired to care for, including me. I've never told anyone, even on Reddit, because I'm afraid no one will listen, but here I am. Experience 3. My ex-husband told me one time that he didn't think it was wrong for a father to be sexually intimate with his daughter, as long as she was old enough. No one will ever know why we truly divorced because I don't think anyone would believe me. He started talking about children. I'd never let my daughter be his. Experience 4. My family think I finished the computer science degree, but I dropped out. However, I've been working in the sector for about 25 years in a row without any trouble, and people, employers and colleagues, seem to think that I'm quite competent. It's not disturbing per se, but for my parents, it was a big deal that I finished my studies. My dad passed away 3 years ago without knowing. My mom is 83 and she is still proud of me, and I hope things stay the same till she dies. Experience 5. When I was a little kid, either 5 or 6 years old, I had gotten in trouble for throwing a TV remote at my sister. My dad is a very large and intimidating man. He stood in the doorway of my room yelling at me. I was hysterical. He was getting angrier and angrier. He started yelling at me to take my clothes off. I took my shirt off. He told me to take my pants off too. And my underwear. I'm in the corner of my room crying, hysterical, afraid, and naked, staring up at this giant, angry, red-faced man. I stood there like that for a moment, when suddenly his anger instantly left his face, making way for shame. He dropped to one knee in the doorway, put his head in his hands, and cried to himself, saying, "What am I doing? I'm a bad father." I walked over to him, still naked and crying, and said, "You're not a bad dad." I hugged him. He left. I don't know if he thinks I forgot about that day, or what, but I remember it vividly. This was over 30 years ago. We've never talked about it. Experience 6. About 5 years ago, one of my cousins started messaging me on Facebook, and I realized right away that he was being extremely flirtatious. I obviously dodged it but tried to do it sensitively, and he wound up confessing to me that his older brother had SA him for years when they were kids. This man has a wife and grown children and lives a life that looks wonderful on the outside, and as far as I know, nobody else in the family has any idea what happened. His older brother also has a wife and grown children and lives a life that looks wonderful on the outside. I don't know if there is anything I could do other than encourage my cousin to seek help, and I worry that my older cousin just SA his brother for years and will get away with it. Edit, I didn't expect any responses at all, and now I need to clear something up really quickly. There are a lot of kind and concerned folks reading my comment who are worried about the older brother's children. I should have added the detail that both brothers' children are all fully grown with lives of their own. I can see how my wording caused concern, and I'm really sorry for that. The abuse of my cousin happened decades and decades ago, and for unrelated reasons, I don't much speak to that side of the family anymore. I hope this doesn't sound uncaring, but this is not my abuse to report at this point, especially since I never witnessed it myself. The only thing my report would rely on was the word of somebody else who doesn't want his past trauma dragged up and inspected and brought to the light for everyone to see. If the abuser's kids were still living in his house when I found out, I absolutely would have reported it at that time. I really appreciate the kind and caring responses I've had here. Y'all are some good eggs. Experience 7. A few years ago, I used to work at Home Depot at the returns desk. It was mostly very elderly people who worked alongside me in our store. I was the youngest in the team. We had a lady, Margaret, who had issues with bowel control due to her medications. She used to fart without even realizing she was farting. Usually loud but harmless ones even when she was having a normal conversation. So, we got so used to her doing that, even though it was awkward in the beginning. One day we were having a team huddle and it started to smell like fresh manure. Such a strong stench, and then one more with a different flavor this time. The manager dismissed the team huddle and one of the team members murmured,
"My God, Margaret, what was that?"
"It was me. I did that, Margaret, I'm sorry." Experience 8. I'm an alcoholic. No one is aware of how bad it's gotten, but I'm drinking to almost blackout daily and going to work ill every single day. I still do my job fine, but the second I'm off it's all I want to do, and I can't stop myself anymore. It's been like this for almost 2 years now. What I'm doing to myself while acting completely fine to everyone disturbs me, but I'm really struggling to get myself help. Experience 9. I was SA'd in my grandparents' backyard with my entire family on the front porch by my first cousin. He's now 22, I'm 16, I am also a guy. This is my first time speaking publicly about this. I was probably like 6 to 7 at the time. I am unsure how much of my family knows about this. I've hidden it all my life. I think about it all the time, it haunts me honestly. I feel like never talking about it makes me sad at times. Other times I feel like if I did open up about it to people in real life it would get out, and I would be absolutely devastated by that. It was never reported or anything, and I'm almost 100% sure my close family knows. It bothers me. They act completely normal toward him and about it, never speak of it or anything. I try to act normal around him, but it's hard. As I get older it gets easier. I try not to think about it. About a month ago, my mother came into my room after my father came home one night drunk. Doesn't happen more than 2 times a year, he's a good guy. She said to me, "Your father was talking about the family member's name thing along with some other stuff he was talking about," but it sounded like it didn't even bother her when she said it. I was in shock because literally, nobody had ever said anything to me about it in my life. I thought that everyone forgot about it and moved on. I stared at my Xbox home screen for 30 minutes after that, got off, and went to sleep. That interaction was wild to me. My emotions are still mixed about it. Another thing is that his mother, my aunt, died of cancer around 2 years ago. I really liked her, but it was always like this stopped us from being as close as we should have been. I was sad when she died, sure, but I really felt close to nothing. I think it's because I blamed her in a way, I'm unsure. I also have been leaving out the fact that this grandparents' house is a weekly gathering on the same day every week for all of my life and will continue to be. I don't know, I feel like I've just needed to talk about it. I left out a whole bunch of details, but that's pretty much the base of it. Thanks for reading. Experience 10. I never had a girlfriend but told everyone I did have one and that she broke up with me. I was so good at lying about it that I myself believed my lie, and somehow, I felt really sad and depressed. Then I even remembered memories I never had, and afterwards I was like, WTF am I doing? Edit. Thanks guys. The responses are really either hilarious or sympathetic. I am happy to tell you that I got rid of that habit some time ago. I am now doing well, albeit single, but what do you know? Sometimes single life seems not so bad to me. Anyway, thanks for the responses. This was my first post getting so many responses. Experience 11. My husband passed away a few years ago. I tell everyone how much I loved him and only talk about the good times we had and how great he was. In honesty, I hated him for every bit of the 33 years we were together. He was so mean to me, both physically and mentally single day. He hid it well, and in front of anyone he was okay to me, but when we were alone, he was terrible. I hated him so much. I live alone now and am just finding myself. I moved to a different state and have made new friends, and everyone seems to really like me, and I even like myself now too. It's been really hard to tell myself that I am okay. I have never said any of this out loud. I feel bad that I am happy he is gone. Experience 12. My wife revealed to me in the last 6 months that she really hasn't felt comfortable with and attracted to me since shortly after she moved in with me. That was 3 years before we were married. We have been married 19 years. You can imagine how entangled our lives are. Being good roommates, parents to teens, and vacation companions doesn't make mentally healthy options, divorce, look much better. These revelations have led to the realization of no connection, and therefore no interest in intercourse, by both of us at this point. Unfortunately, marriage has been financially harmful. Some with a history of a spending problem moderately improved this last year, and divorce would be devastating at this point. Screw my life. Edit. Months of weekly therapy, multiple self-help books, countless conversations, and even spending more time together have only revealed our issues more strongly. Edit 2. We had occasional intercourse for the whole marriage. Until therapy started. It was always initiated by me, or her thinking that I've gone too long without, and she almost always had to have a drink or take to get herself in the mood. Her vulnerability and refusal to allow herself to be pleasured is a whole other topic. Until recently, I craved more frequency, gave up on deeper sexual exploration years ago, thinking that was the main problem. Then it's like I woke up from a stupor. Although I'm trying, I find it hard to connect to someone who I don't believe likes me. Probably the same for her. But we are trying. Edit 3. She is a caring person. I believe she wasn't deliberate about moving forward despite not being comfortable with me intimately since early on. She was optimistic that our situation would get better as my career progressed. She also recently admitted that she didn't think intercourse was that important around the time we got married. In many ways, I've been treated quite well, like I'm one of the pets. She just hasn't felt the romantic or intimate tug most of our relationship after I wasn't able to be physically or emotionally there when she first moved in. Experience 13. I was abused mentally, physically, and sexually from the age of around 7 to 15 years old by one person, who I thought was my best friend during the time. I'm 23 now and just finally coming around to the realization of everything that happened and why I have so many mental health and trust issues now, and I'm talking about it in therapy finally. As far as I know, my abuser is living a comfortable, happy life, and the only person that knows about this is me and my therapist. Experience 14. Okay, this will probably cause me some shame, but it'll get buried, so I don't know. So, my wife makes great biscuits and gravy. Like really good. I never liked biscuits and gravy before we got married. Maybe I never had a version that was good enough. Maybe my tastes changed. All of my kids love my wife's biscuits and gravy too. She's a pretty damn good cook, so they're that. Over the years, I've had other versions of biscuits and gravy with varying affection for the taste. Some are good, and some plan to just flat out mid. So, again, my wife's gravy with biscuits comes out on top. Well, one day a friend of mine and his wife came over so we could all hang out. He offered to cook dinner for us. He said that he was going to make biscuits and gravy. Now, like I mentioned before, I never liked it before I got married and had me try hers. So, I was a bit nervous. As mentioned previously, my wife's biscuits and gravy always came out on top. When your friend comes over and cooks for you, how do you gently tell them that it's not good? Do you give them the fake sounding, "My stomach has been messed up all day"? Or the tried and true "I already ate" line? "I'll eat it later." The latter buys you enough time to let them leave before you throw the poop out. Anyway, my buddy's cooking and I'm already mentally preparing my speech, going over and over in my head so it doesn't sound forced or sincere enough. But hey, at the very least I can always just choke it down, right? Well, he finished up and had us try it. I'll be damned if it wasn't the best biscuits and gravy I've ever had in my life. Like damn, it was tasty. I had 2 plates worth. I still think of it from time to time. And while my wife's biscuits and gravy are still good, it pales in comparison to my friend's version. Every time she cooks it, I remember my friend's version and I don't say anything. Nothing at all. I'm not trying to get my ass kicked. So, I hide my head in shame.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.